Most all-terrain tires are a lie. The ones lining the shelves at every major retailer, the ones with aggressive tread blocks and marketing copy about conquering any surface, the ones your off-road forums swore were the only choice. Most of them fall apart the moment you ask them to do both jobs. I spent 30,000 miles and tested 10 all-terrain tires across identical conditions. 10 tires went in, 2 came out standing. Stay with me, because the 2 that survived will surprise you, and the ones that failed will make you deeply suspicious of every tire review you have ever trusted. Tire number 10, Falcon Wildpeak, a T3W. The Falcon Wildpeak, a T3W, entered this test with more forum endorsements than almost any other tire on the list. Drivers in overlanding communities speak about it with a loyalty that borders on devotion, and the initial impressions on fitment confirmed why. The tread pattern is aggressive without being theatrical. The sidewall reinforcement is visible and substantial. Mounted and balanced, the first 300 miles were genuinely impressive. Then the highway miles accumulated. By 5,000 miles, the tire noise had climbed from a background hum to a conversation-interrupting drone at speeds above 60 miles per hour. By 8,000 miles, the wear pattern on the outer tread blocks had developed an irregular shoulder wear that no rotation schedule corrected. The tire was cupping, not severely but measurably, and cupping on an all-terrain tire in highway rotation is a sign of a compound that was tuned for load-bearing off-road stress rather than the sustained high-speed flex that highway driving demands repeatedly. The Falcon finished the test rotation early at 18,000 miles with wear levels that made completing the full 30,000 inadvisable. Strong off-road, compromised on-road. The forums love it because most forum members are not daily driving it to work and back before the weekend trail run. The ones who tell a different story. Now take everything that just failed about that tire and imagine a manufacturer that saw the same problem, promised they had solved it, charged $60 more per tire for the solution, and then delivered something that made the same mistake in a completely different way. That is exactly what comes next. Tire number 9, Cooper Discoverer, a T3 XLT. The Cooper Discoverer, a T3 XLT, came into this test as the value proposition pick. Cooper has decades of all-terrain credibility, and the AT3 XLT sits at a price point that makes it genuinely accessible to drivers who need a capable tire without a premium budget. The tread compound felt confident on the first wet highway drive. Braking distances were competitive. Initial noise levels were acceptable. The off-road section of the test told a different story immediately. In deep mud, the center tread channel packed rather than evacuated. The tire did not self-clean under rotation, the way the tread geometry suggested it should. Forward momentum in moderate mud required more throttle than comparable tires. On loose rock, the compound felt slightly wooden, transmitting less road feel than you want when you are picking a line across an uneven surface and relying on grip feedback to make the next steering input. Wet pavement grip degraded noticeably after 12,000 miles. The compound was wearing in a way that reduced the sight density available at the contact patch. Braking distances on wet pavement at 15,000 miles were measurably longer than they had been at 5,000 miles. For a daily driver that operates in a climate with significant rainfall, this trajectory is not acceptable. The Cooper finished the test. It completed 30,000 miles, but the tire that finished at 30,000 miles was not the tire that started the test. The performance envelope had shrunk considerably, and the wet braking degradation specifically represents a safety concern that outlasts any cost savings the initial purchase price offered. That one at least finished. What comes next did not make it to 20,000 miles, and the way it failed is the kind of thing that should have been caught in development testing, but somehow was not. Tire number 8, Nitto Terra Grappler G2. The Nitto Terra Grappler G2 is one of the most visually striking all-terrain tires available. The tread architecture is genuinely distinctive, and the tire presents beautifully on a truck or SUV with any kind of lifted stance. Nitto has built significant brand equity in the performance truck community, and the Terra Grappler G2 is the tire that most of that equity rests on. The ride quality in the first 2,000 miles was exceptional, quieter than expected, comfortable over expansion joints, composed at highway speed. The wet grip was strong. Initial off-road performance on graded dirt and gravel was completely confidence-inspiring. This tire had the best first 5,000 miles of any tire in this test. The next 5,000 miles revealed the problem. The center tread wear rate was accelerating disproportionately relative to the shoulder blocks. By 10,000 miles, the center of the tread was visibly lower than the outer tread blocks, and the contact patch had effectively quickly become two separate outer rails with a shallow center depression between them. The tire was beginning to behave like a tire with a worn center groove pattern. Wet braking suffered. Highway stability in crosswind conditions required more steering correction than it had in the first 5,000 miles. You think uneven wear was the worst failure in this test? Keep reading, because the next tire did something at highway speed that no wear pattern can explain, and it happened fast enough that calling it a surprise would be an understatement. Tire number 7, Mickey Thompson Baja Boss AT. The Mickey Thompson Baja Boss AT costs more than most competitors in this segment and arrives with a brand reputation built almost entirely on racing and extreme off-road applications. The Baja name carries genuine desert racing heritage, and the tire is constructed to reflect it. Sidewall protection is among the best tested. Tread block stiffness on rock is outstanding. The tire inspired complete confidence on the most technically demanding off-road sections of this test. Highway behavior was the problem from day one. The Baja Boss AT generates a harmonic resonance at speeds between 62 and 71 miles per hour that creates a vibration felt through the steering column and the seat. It is not subtle. Multiple wheel balance attempts across 3 different balancing machines did not eliminate it. The resonance is a function of the tread block geometry interacting with road surface vibration frequencies at those specific speeds, and no static balance correction addresses a dynamic harmonic issue. The off-road performance was the best of any tire that exited this test early. That is the most frustrating kind of failure, a tire that absolutely solves one half of the equation and refuses to acknowledge the other half exists. What follows is the tire that the major retail chains push hardest, the one with the most prominent shelf placement and the most aggressive promotional pricing, and the one that revealed exactly why promotional pricing exists. Tire number 6, General Grabber ATX. The General Grabber ATX is the tire that well-meaning friends recommend. It has broad retail availability, competitive pricing, a recognizable brand, and reviews that skew positive because the majority of reviewers are evaluating it against a single-use standard. Either they are highway drivers who find it acceptable, or they are weekend off-roaders who find it capable. The dual-use driver, who needs it to perform at a high level in both environments, simultaneously finds something different. Highway performance was adequate through 10,000 miles. Noise levels were controlled. Wear was even. Wet grip was acceptable rather than impressive. Nothing about the first 10,000 miles suggested a problem was developing. The off-road performance exposed it. On loose rock, the tread blocks deflected under lateral load in a way that produced a sliding sensation rather than a biting sensation. The compound is tuned soft enough for road comfort, but that same softness costs grip on irregular surfaces where a stiffer block would plant and hold rather than squirm and slide. In mud, the evacuation was marginal, not dangerous, not confidence-inspiring either. At 22,000 miles, the shoulder wear had reached the point where the tire was behaving like a highway tire on the trail rather than an all-terrain tire anywhere. The performance window that made it acceptable in both environments had closed. It finished the test mileage technically, but the tire that crossed 30,000 miles was a shadow of what an all-terrain tire should be at that point in its life. If this is already reshaping how you think about the tire choices sitting in front of you right now, subscribe immediately, because what this test uncovered about the next 4 tires gets significantly more serious before it gets better. Tire number 5, BF Goodrich All-Terrain KO2. The BF Goodrich All-Terrain KO2 is the most famous all-terrain tire in the world. It has been the default recommendation in every off-road community for the better part of 2 decades. The heritage is real. The military and emergency service adoption is documented. The overlanding community's faith in it is not misplaced in the context of the use case those communities primarily represent. That use case is not 30,000 miles of combined city, highway, and trail driving evaluated against a consistent dual performance standard, and that distinction matters enormously. The KO2 delivered excellent off-road performance throughout the test. Mud grip, rock bite, sidewall protection, and trail confidence were all at the top of the group. Highway noise was higher than the segment average, but within a range that most truck and SUV drivers adapt to and accept. Wet braking was strong through the first 15,000 miles. The failure arrived in the form of wear rate. The KO2 compound wears faster on pavement than its reputation suggests, and that reputation was built primarily by drivers who use it predominantly off-road, where pavement wear is not the primary stress. A daily driver logging significant highway mileage will find the KO2 wear rate running ahead of its mileage warranty pace consistently. It completed the test. The tread depth at 30,000 miles was marginal for continued safe use. A tire that costs significantly more than the segment average and delivers less usable highway life than its price implies represents a value failure even when the raw performance metrics are strong. Now the next tire is the one that will genuinely make you angry because it markets itself directly and specifically at the dual-use driver, names the exact use case this test was designed to evaluate, charges a premium price for that targeting, and then fails in the most predictable way imaginable. Tire number 4, Toyo Open Country, a T3. The Toyo Open Country, a T3 markets itself with language about refined all-terrain capability, about bridging the gap between on-road civility and off-road performance, about being the choice for drivers who refuse to compromise. The marketing is precise, and the price reflects the confidence behind it. The on-road performance is genuinely among the best tested. Highway noise is among the lowest in the all-terrain segment. Ride quality is composed and comfortable over a range of surfaces. Wet grip in the first 10,000 miles is outstanding. If this test were a highway performance evaluation, the AT3 would be a serious contender for the top position. The trail sections expose the compromise that the marketing language obscures. The same compound tuning that produces exceptional highway noise levels and ride quality requires a tread block stiffness that reduces off-road bite in the conditions where bite matters most. Loose rock grip was the weakest of all 10 tires tested. Mud performance was the second weakest. The tire that refuses to compromise on highway refinement has made a very specific and very significant compromise on the trail that it simply does not advertise. For a driver who uses a trail twice a year, the AT3 is probably the correct choice. For the driver, this test was built around the one splitting meaningful mileage between both surfaces. The AT3 is a highway tire wearing all-terrain marketing. What comes next made it further than it had any right to based on its price point and its brand profile. And the reason it failed will tell you more about how tire testing is conducted than anything else in this video. Tire number 3, Goodyear Wrangler Duratrack. The Goodyear Wrangler Duratrack entered this test as an outlier. Its tread pattern is more aggressive than most tires in the all-terrain classification, sitting closer to the mud-terrain boundary than any other tire in this group. That aggression was expected to cost it dearly on highway noise and wear. It cost less than anticipated on both counts. Highway noise was higher than average, but not at the level the tread pattern suggested it would be. Goodyear's Tractive Groove technology, which creates self-cleaning movement in the tread blocks under load, also contributes to a noise frequency that is less intrusive than the block size implies. Wear rate was competitive through 20,000 miles. The off-road performance was the strongest of any tire that made it past 20,000 miles. Rock grip was exceptional. Mud evacuation was the best in the test. Trail confidence at the limits of traction was higher than anything else available at this price point. The failure came at 24,000 miles. The aggressive tread block edges, which provide the off-road grip advantage, began feathering on highway rotation. Feathering is an irregular wear pattern where one edge of a tread block wears faster than the other, producing a sawtooth profile that increases noise, reduces grip, and accelerates overall wear. Once feathering begins on an all-terrain tire with this tread architecture, it is self-reinforcing. The feathered edges create uneven contact that wears the adjacent blocks unevenly, spreading the pattern. The Duratrack exited the test at 26,000 miles, 4,000 miles short, a tire that was genuinely competitive in both environments until the wear characteristic that its tread geometry made inevitable finally arrived. Now we are down to 3 tires still running at 30,000 miles, and one of the 3 is about to reveal something about budget all-terrain options that changes the entire conversation. What comes next is either the biggest surprise in this test or the most important lesson, depending on how you look at it. Tire number 2, Michelin Defender LT XAT. The Michelin Defender LT XAT is not a tire that generates excitement. It does not have an aggressive name. The tread pattern is not the kind of thing that makes other drivers in a parking lot stop and look. Michelin designed the Defender LT XAT around a specific engineering priority that most tire marketing actively avoids naming directly because it is not glamorous. That priority is consistency, not peak performance. Consistent performance across every surface, in every condition, at every point in the tire's usable life. The first 5,000 miles were unspectacular, Good, not great. Highway noise was low. Wet grip was strong. Dry handling was precise. Off-road performance on graded dirt was competent without being memorable. This was a tire that was not trying to impress anyone in the short term. The gap began opening around 10,000 miles. When the tires around it were beginning to show the wear characteristics, noise increases, and performance degradation that their compound and construction decisions made inevitable, the Defender LTXAT was performing at almost identical levels to its 5,000-mile baseline. The compound Michelin uses wears in a way that maintains tread geometry rather than destroying it. The sipes that provide wet grip are still open and functional at 20,000 miles. The tread block edges that provide off-road bite are still sharp at 25,000 miles. The off-road performance never reached the peak levels of the Duratrack or the KO2 in extreme conditions. On serious rock and deep mud, there is a ceiling on the Defender LTXAT that a more aggressive tire pushes higher. But the dual-use driver who needs trail capability rather than trail extremity finds a tire that handles moderate off-road with complete confidence and returns to the highway without penalizing every subsequent commute. At 30,000 miles, the Defender LTXAT had tread depth that made continued use not just safe, but genuinely comfortable. The tire that crossed the 30,000-mile mark was performing at levels that would have been competitive at 10,000 miles. That is what consistency means at 30,000 miles of combined use. That is what every tire in this test promised, and almost none of them delivered. One tire remains. And the reason it not only survived 30,000 miles, but came out as the strongest overall performer in this test, will require you to rethink everything the all-terrain category has told you about what a capable tire is supposed to look like, because this tire does not look the part at all. Tire number 1, Continental Terrain Contact, AT. The Continental Terrain Contact AT does not belong in a conversation about all-terrain tires, according to most of the overlanding community. It is too quiet. The tread pattern is too conservative. The sidewall protection is adequate rather than dramatic. Continental built it for drivers who need reliable all-terrain capability without sacrificing the ride quality and handling precision that a daily driver demands. And the overlanding community largely dismissed it as a pavement tire wearing all-terrain aesthetics. 30,000 miles of dual-use testing says the overlanding community was measuring the wrong things. Highway performance was the best of any tire in this test, from the first mile to the last. Noise levels at highway speed were genuinely comparable to highway all-season tires. Wet braking distances were the shortest in the test at every mileage checkpoint, not just the early ones. Dry handling precision was remarkable for an all-terrain tire, with steering response that communicated road feel clearly without the vagueness that softer all-terrain compounds introduce. Ride quality over expansion joints, rough pavement, and urban surfaces was consistently composed throughout the entire 30,000 miles. The off-road performance was the piece the community doubted, and the performance data from the trail sections of this test is the finding that changes the conversation. On graded dirt and gravel, the Terrain Contact AT was competitive with every tire in this test. On loose rock, it delivered grip levels that were stronger than the Toyo AT3, the Cooper AT3 XLT, and the General Grabber ATX. Mud performance was the one environment where the conservative tread pattern showed a genuine limitation. In deep mud, the Terrain Contact AT requires careful throttle management, where more aggressive tires allow brute force solutions. For the driver whose off-road use involves trails, forest roads, graded dirt, rock, and the occasional muddy access road, the Terrain Contact AT handles everything with competence and returns to the highway without noise, without accelerated wear, without any of the compromises that every other tire in this test extracted as payment for its off-road capability. At 30,000 miles, the tread depth remaining was the highest of any tire tested. The wet braking performance at 30,000 miles was within a measurable margin of its 0-mile baseline. The tire that the community dismissed for not looking aggressive enough was the tire that performed most consistently across every surface at every point in its life. Here is what this test actually means, and this is the part the tire industry does not want framed this way. Most all-terrain tires are optimized for the sale rather than the use. The tread pattern that sells a tire to an enthusiast in a shop is an aggressive tread pattern. Aggressive tread patterns generate noise, uneven wear, and handling compromises on the pavement surface where most drivers spend most of their time. The two tires that survived this test, the Michelin and the Continental were both designed around what the driver actually experiences over the life of the tire, rather than what the driver feels in the first 1,000 miles or sees on the shelf. The question to ask before buying any all-terrain tire is not which one looks most capable. It is which one will still be performing in both environments at 25,000 miles, because that is where you actually live with the decision you made at 5,000 miles, when everything still felt new and impressive. If this video saved you from a set of tires that would have failed you at highway speed, at 20,000 miles, or on the trail when you needed them most, hit that like button right now. Subscribe for more of this. Real tests, real mileage, real results that the marketing budgets of the companies involved would prefer you never see. There is a video on your screen right now that breaks down the one tire maintenance habit that extends the life of any all-terrain tire by thousands of miles, regardless of which brand is on your vehicle. Click it now, and I will meet you there.